Ukrainian people are fleeing the country by the hundreds of thousands because of all this, a rush to safety that's becoming more and more difficult and dangerous every day.
The United Nations says roughly 1 million people escaped Ukraine since the assault started. That's a little more than just 2% of Ukraine's total population. Some of those escaping have citizenship in other countries. The UN Refugee Agency predicted up to 4 million people could leave eventually, leaving a country with a population of 44 million.
Today, the Biden administration announced it would grant temporary protected status to Ukrainians who have been in the U.S. since March 1st.
Ukrainian refugees are heading to neighboring countries like Poland, Moldova, Slovakia, and others.
But we could start seeing them in the United States, or I guess that would be the question. Could we soon start seeing some of these Ukrainian refugees in the United States? Tristan Lewis joins us with an answer to that question. And Tristan, what about Idaho? Should we be preparing for some of these arrivals?
So, Brian and Morgan, over the last 10 years, Idaho has resettled 125 refugees from Ukraine. That's according to the Idaho Office for Refugees. However, the office says that number still doesn't paint a full picture of how many Ukrainian people are actually in the gem state. The office does tell me they've had a handful of families reach out with questions related to getting those relatives in Ukraine to Idaho. But when that could possibly be, well, that's hard to say. The Russian invasion of Ukraine has forced 1 million people to flee their homeland.
No one ever becomes a refugee by choice, and there's very little choice throughout the whole entire process.
And it's sparking questions about where these Ukrainian refugees will now go.
I think with all of Idaho, we've been watching with really heavy hearts.
Holly Beech with the Idaho Office for Refugees says at the moment, the gem state is not preparing for an increase of Ukrainian refugees.
Federally, it's not something that the U.S. is doing on the scale, for instance, what we saw with Afghanistan with Operations Allies Welcome.
Last year, Idaho welcomed hundreds of refugees from Afghanistan. Beech says what's happening in Ukraine compared to Afghanistan is different.
Because of the involvement and the help that people had provided to our military, because that was putting them in danger, we had an obligation to make sure that we helped as a country get them out to safety.
And while the U.S. has no plans to welcome an influx of Ukrainian refugees anytime soon, Georgette Sequeros with the IRC of Boise says other countries are welcoming people fleeing with shelter and resources.
The IRC is on the ground currently in Poland, helping receive civilians as they enter that country, seeking safety, and also is partnering with a lot of organizations in both Poland and Ukraine to provide support to civilians on the ground there.
Beech says for now, resettlement closer to Ukraine is more ideal.
The goal with any crisis like this with refugees is to see first, are there opportunities to allow you to go home safely?
And the International Rescue Committee in Boise says people who want to donate can do so through them. Proceeds will go to people on the ground helping those fleeing, and people can make a donation at rescue.org. Brian Morgan.
I guess that's the key to that, is whether or not this will end anytime soon and whether there'll be anything left for them to go back
Exactly.
to.
What do you go home to?
Yeah.
Right. Tristan Lewis, thank you.